Dynamite Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time show. We're in college football week 7 here this week. We're ready to get into some previews. Interesting slate of games this week. No real, I'd put high profile game, but a lot of, I'd say important type games throughout the conference slate this week. What do you think about the slate this week, Dynamite?
Yeah, it's another not so big one, but we're getting fewer and fewer big games as teams lose and drop some, and you just have fewer undefeateds left. And then there's some good games on paper this week, but then when you really look at it, you're like, is that team really worthy of a top 15 ranking? Like you look at Georgia and Kentucky, that should be 2 undefeated SEC teams in week 7. But can Kentucky really hang with them? I don't know. We'll get to it.
Yeah, I think that's the first two-leg top 10 matchup where there's a 22-point spread on the game overall. You mentioned that, I was looking a little bit at that Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech game. A lot of the metrics and a lot of the power rankings have Pittsburgh really high. I think that's a really important ACC game, but it's not really like a sexy matchup where you play in your party. Everybody let's come watch Pitt and Va Tech. But, it might be the thing that ends up deciding the ACC. You have the Oklahoma State-Texas game. How will Texas bounce back? Iowa goes on the road to Purdue. That's an interesting matchup. I wouldn't call it a great game, but just a lot of interesting matchups, I think especially with Ohio State and Notre Dame, off this week, along with a couple other teams, it probably thins out the slate a little bit. But nonetheless, interesting games this week if we just maybe don't have quite the marquee matchup. One of them that probably was a lot more interesting in the preseason, Cincinnati versus Central Florida here. Yeah. This one took a really big hit when Dylan Gabriel got hurt in that Louisville game. But, Central Florida found a way to win that Eastern Carolina game, and Eastern Carolina had been pretty hot nonetheless, coming off that bad loss for Central Florida to Navy there. But they won a 2016 game. I don't know the last time Central Florida played a defensive shootout type game. But anyway, Cincinnati coming off a big win last week at Temple, that game off Notre Dame. What do you make of this game? Cincinnati's a pretty big favorite here at around 21.5 is probably hovering around the number. What do you make of this game?
Well, I think Cincinnati needs to do all they can do to impress as many people as they can. So this is one of those games they're going to have to come out and really take care of business because their schedule's not doing them any favors. So this is one where I think the score margin is really going to come into play here when it comes down to them versus a one-loss team at the end of the year. And they're going to need, like I said, they're going to need all the resume they can get. I think they should win this game, but that's an awfully large spread. And Cincinnati's been a little up and down and a little inconsistent. They've taken care of business, but they haven't looked like that solid team, from first quarter through fourth quarter.
Yeah, you mentioned it, Cincinnati's schedule. We looked at it coming into the preseason and we were like, oh, this is a pretty tough schedule. But unfortunately, Indiana has been just brutal. And then Notre Dame, they did get that win at Virginia Tech. It's, I don't know if we call it a win, but they came out on top, I think we'll go with there. But so that Notre Dame win's about all they have to hang their hat on. You looked at this game in the preseason, you were like, oh, this is going to be, a matchup for the conference title. UCF, due to the Dylan Gabriel injury, has fallen off. Smooth's still up there. So that's probably what they're going to have to ride on. If SMU can hang in there, I haven't mentioned it lately, but Houston is coming into form, we'll say. They're off this week, but I don't know if we trust Houston yet, but they are a good team right now after the miscalculation of the opening week versus Texas Tech. So maybe
you
those
still have that preseason bet with them winning the conference?
Preseason bet. It's looking much better now than it was after the opening week. But I still don't know if I quite trust them yet. But you mentioned it. This game was probably a 5 to 8 point spread game. If Dylan Gabriel's in there, it jumps to 21. I just don't see a lot of value really on either side here. I haven't seen quite enough from Central Florida to really want to jump on them. And last week versus Temple was really the first game you can say Cincinnati just dominated someone from the start and really put it on them. So maybe they're ready to do that every week, but I just don't know if I trust Cincinnati quite yet to cover this 21 point spread.
Yeah. Cincinnati, they're still a team that, they could come out strong, and then all of a sudden, turn over here, turn over there, and they're out of a game against somebody they should be in with. So, like I said, I look for them they need to take that next step to be a dominant team if they want to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, we'll move on to the Big 12. Texas playing Oklahoma State here. Oklahoma State coming in 5-0. Texas coming off that I don't know what to call that loss last week. I know it hurt you a whole lot, and I think you flicked the TV off maybe at 28-7 thinking we got a victory in the bag with the plus there, and then Oklahoma made the smart move. Finally, Spencer Rattler benched, and Oklahoma proceeded to score, 35 unanswered points there?
Yeah, I was listening to some games on the radio driving, and heard the update on that one. I was like, all right, got that one. Texas plus 3.5 solid. And then I go back and I hear that, Oklahoma's going for the game-winning field goal. And I was like, oh, good. I still got the plus 3.5. And, they're lining the ball up with a simple, dive play, and he takes it to the house. Bad beat there.
Yeah, that one.
But
was not fun. It cost me a parlay. I think it cost you a straight bet, didn't change.
Yeah, but I'm interested about see this game because, a lot of people are still really sleeping on Oklahoma State, kind of in the same way they were sleeping on Oklahoma. Just not really any pretty wins, just a lot of ugly, grind it out against teams they really shouldn't have to grind it out, but they're getting it done. And Oklahoma State's probably playing the best defense in the Big 12. I know that's not saying a whole lot, but it'll be interesting to see if they can slow down this Texas offense, which did pretty well. Got off to that huge lead and really didn't drop off a whole lot against Oklahoma, but just quit playing defense and let Oklahoma get back in that game. But Texas offense is still running pretty good. So it'll be an interesting matchup with them, Oklahoma State. See if Texas still has any fight left in them for this season.
Yeah, I'm really interested about this game. A part of me really wants to take Oklahoma State here coming off a bye. And, what sort of mindset will Texas be in? I think they were all hyped up thinking they were ready to win the Big 12 there last week. And then at 28-7, really probably thought they were about to win the Big 12. And then they dropped that game. Now they have to go into this tough game with Oklahoma State. And, you lose that Oklahoma game, you lose this Oklahoma State game, and then bam, your Big 12 dreams are dead there. The thing I just is making me hesitant to sort of grab Oklahoma State here is I just don't know if they'll have the offense here to slow down Texas. I think that defense is really, really good. It hasn't really played an offense we probably put to the level of this Texas team yet so far this season. I'd probably say Baylor might be the best offense they've played so far this year, which I don't think is a true test. So going down there on the road, I haven't fully made myself want to grab this Oklahoma State just because I don't know if this defense is that legit to slow down a Texas team like this.
Well, you said it, one thing to look at here, Oklahoma State coming off a bye, Texas coming off that huge emotional letdown of dropping that game in the end that they had won in one of the biggest rivalries in the country. So I'd have to lean Oklahoma State here. I don't have a play in this game, but if I were to have to pick a side, I'd lean Oklahoma State. Just not enough there to convince me to take it.
Yeah, definitely so. This might be thrown into a parlay a little bit later in the week. Not too much later because those games are tomorrow. A little bit later as in tomorrow. So I'm interested to see if this Oklahoma State team, if they can go down there and win in Texas, I think they legit probably become the favorites here to win the Big 12 with, wins over Texas, wins over Baylor. Those are probably the two other best teams other than Oklahoma in the Big 12 right now. So if they can pull this one off, I think we sort of got to just push it where Oklahoma State's probably one of the best teams in the Big 12. Doing it a way we haven't really seen, but getting it done nonetheless. All right, we'll move on to this one. Arkansas coming off that tough loss to Ole Miss, really just a back and forth game where nobody could stop anyone at all, but go for it on that 2-point conversion play, which, it
looked like
I really don't have a problem with the going for the 2.
But let's run a play that you've maybe practiced once before.
Yeah, I know.
It looked like they'd never even tried that play in their life.
Yeah, that play call, overloading that side and then sprinting out to that side, it just sort of it just left me confused. How much I hate just that sprint out on the goal line anyway, where you cut off 3/4 of your field, and I'm like, okay, that just leaves that linebackers who's sitting in coverage over there just to come in and rush the passer, which is what you did, which blew up the play and game over.
Yeah, I love the play call, like the going for 2. I think in that kind of game, you keep you decide the game in your hands right then and there. You don't give them a shot to take it. I like that, but you've got to have something in the bag that you can execute when that time comes. And that just looked like it was just a mess on the field.
Yeah, I think you could have either gone right back to the same play that you just scored the touchdown on. It looked like Ole Miss had no clue how to guard that, backline crossing route. There were 3 receivers open on that play and 1 defensive back safety in that area. You could have gone right back to that. I'm not sure Ole Miss would have adjusted at that point. And then just the simple, you got that tank of a quarterback, line him up, have him bulldoze and, go for it there. It just seemed overcomplicated. And then you cut off half your field. And I didn't like that, but Arkansas did bounce back, did get the cover in that one. Match up with Auburn here, who after looking, I don't want to good, quote unquote, versus LSU. But apparently that's a little easier than we thought because Kentucky's offense looked like a freight train versus LSU the week after that. Looked really, really poor once again versus Georgia last week. What do you make of this Auburn-Arkansas game here?
Yeah, it's really going to be curious to see, which team still has the motivation to keep going. I think at this point, Arkansas's had a couple letdowns here, one bigger than the other. And then, Auburn got that big win and then let down last week. So it'll be see who bounced back the best. But I don't know if Arkansas can do offensively against Auburn what they did against Ole Miss. So I'd probably have to lean Auburn here just because I think their offense can move the ball a little bit more consistently.
Yeah, I would think Arkansas is going to win this game just because I think they might actually be the better team here. But where I get a little bit is that spread. This just feels like a field goal game there at the end. Probably not all that pretty to watch. But I just would be reticent to take that -4.5. Now, that being said, Arkansas hasn't really played a lot of home games in this, massive stretch of games here. The only question I'd have about that is they have run through a real gauntlet here. And, this might be the easiest game they've had in the last 5 weeks, which is sort of saying something here. So, I don't trust Auburn, so I definitely would not touch that 4.5. I mean, they could just as easily roll over and get beat here if Arkansas starts smashing them in the mouth. But with the schedule that Arkansas has had and with that number being a little bit higher than I'd want, I definitely going to leave it alone. But I do think Arkansas probably sneaks this game out here. All right, let's move on to a game that probably everybody had as a big time matchup, but is now a nooner. So Florida goes to LSU. I'd like to know the last time Florida LSU was a nooner. Probably
Kentucky bumped them both out of the 3:30 time slot.
Yeah, I know. This probably was in the mid 80s, the last time these two teams were a noon game. But Florida goes there, 12-point favorites in LSU. I'd be a little scared of taking that, but I don't know what sort of life LSU has after what we've seen the last 2 weeks. And honestly, I was more than anything shocked that Ed is still employed.
I think at this point, they're just not going to do a midseason firing because I'd say it's already done. I don't see him coming back from these losses, especially with, the off the field issues this past year. I don't know what's going on, but just didn't have it this year. They've got talent on this team, but
that's what I don't understand. The talent's there, and they are getting rolled. That game versus Kentucky was just embarrassing.
I think Joe Brady had a lot more to do with that national championship than Orgeron. So
yes, I made the joke on Tuesday on our NFL recap pod that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow carry Ed Orgeron, probably the worst college football coach to win a national championship ever, and now they're dragging Zach Taylor's butt into NFL coaching relevancy when I think he's probably the worst NFL coach. So, hey, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase carrying bad coaches wherever they go to relevancy here. But what about this spread here? I think Florida probably wins this game unless, LSU comes up with some sort of heart that I had missed. But 12 just seems like a bridge too far for me to want to take a team who has not shown the ability to really pass the ball all that well.
Yeah, I don't know. I still like Florida's offense. I think this has been a team of bad breaks in all their games this year. I think they've had a lot of things that if just a couple things had gone their way, they could be undefeated here. So just really, really tough season for Florida, and I think this could be a game they turn it around. And actually, I think they could win big here.
Yeah, do you? I probably just am scared sighted wise by seeing a 12-point favorite in LSU. I probably should have looked up the last time LSU was 12-point dogs in Baton Rouge. That would have to be probably bordering in Gary DiNardo territory.
We know what happened a few weeks ago. The last time he talked me into taking the Tigers in the swamp in a night game. Or not the swamp, sorry, Tiger Stadium. But
they were winning at a point in that one, at least. All right, we'll move on to the next. I guess this is the big SEC game, probably the Bama game.
It is. I mean, it's hard to say that it is, but it is.
Yeah. Kentucky, 6-0 as they might be, goes to Georgia. Georgia is a 21.5-point favorite, probably 22 some places as well. And
one thing I want to talk about real quick, who in their right mind schedules Florida, LSU, and Georgia in back-to-back weeks?
Well, if they win it, we're going to have to talk about Kentucky going into the playoffs. So what do you make of this? Kentucky got a chance here, or you just – this record is shinier than what the actual team is?
I think Georgia's going to flex here. I'd be surprised if Kentucky gets into double digits. Now, I don't know if Georgia – will score enough to cover this spread. But I could easily see this being a 21-3. So if I were going to take anything, I'm not taking this just because that's way too big of a spread. I would take Georgia. I just don't like Kentucky's offense that well, and against what's proven to be the best defense in the country right now.
Yeah, I don't think I'd touch the spread here just because that just seems like an awful lot. But I really think Kentucky will struggle to score here.
I guess what is about 3 weeks ago, I thought, 18.5. Sure, Arkansas can cover that spread, and they got just manhandled by Georgia. So we could see a similar outing again tomorrow for Georgia against Kentucky.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I'm a little worried that Kentucky turns the ball over. Georgia gets some free points there, and that's where that spread gets covered.
They can just lean on that defense the rest of the game.
And if they get up in this, I don't foresee Kentucky to really be able to handle this. And, Kentucky is 6-0, but, they got that last second win versus Florida, which is, it was a little fluky. That South Carolina game, 16-10, also was just a gross game that anybody could have won. And then you go back to even that Chattanooga game.
Yeah.
They were battling tooth and nail with Chattanooga. Same with Mizzou game. So there's but it's like,
that's what I was going to say. I think
6.
Mizzou may have the worst defense in the country, and I think they put the fewest points on them than anybody like all year.
Yeah, because I believe North Texas scored more than 35 last week on them. So, that's what concerns me here. It's, kudos to Kentucky for getting to that 6-0 mark. It's really, a win is a win. You can't really complain about the margins that they're winning, but I think they get a little bit exposed here, and we'll see if they can continue to win. But right now they probably have the edge here for 2 out of the SEC East. So we'll see how this game goes down. We'll see if Kentucky can hang with Georgia, who's looked nothing but really, really good so far this year. Our next game up here, I'm really interested in this one. BYU coming off that tough loss to Boise State. Boise seemed to have finally found their run game in that one. They hadn't found it all season long. They finally hit it, and, BYU couldn't cover it. Baylor, once again, a good game last week, continues to look really, really good. They just annihilated West Virginia in that one. So this Baylor team, I don't really know how to sort of handicap them, because I don't know if they have a lot of talent on it quite yet, but they're a good football team. They win games.
And overachieving for sure.
Yeah. And so, BYU, I think these two teams are really sort of similar here. 5.5 for Baylor. This is BYU going on the road here. I do find it a bit confusing that somehow Arizona State is ranked 2 or 3 spots ahead of BYU, though they both have 1 loss, and they legitimately just played 3 weeks ago, and BYU handed it to them. I'm not going to go into rankings or anything, diatribe, but seems a little confusing that you have a head-to-head matchup 3 weeks ago, and yet the team who won that is 3 spots behind the other one. But
that goes to show you how many games that the voters are actually watching.
Yes, I know. All right, so Baylor 5.5, BYU goes there. What do you think of this one?
This is a good game. They're too similar, tough teams. They're grinded out teams. BYU's offense, I think, is proven a little bit more consistent than Baylor's. But Baylor can make some big turnover plays, game-changing plays. So, they both got the 1 loss. So we'll see who bounces back the best. But I'd have to lean BYU for sure.
Yeah, I think I was leaning BYU, and then I was just like, I might trust this Baylor team. I don't know why, but they've just been spunky. I figure I look at them a little like Kentucky. Like I don't quite know how they're doing it, but they're doing it every week. So you might as well just adjust in your head what you think of it, however it gets done. But I was really more so impressed with the Baylor game last week, where they just annihilated West Virginia. Now, granted, that was one of those where West Virginia crosses half the country to go play Baylor. That's what you get when you're playing a coastal team into a Midwest South team. So, anyway, I couldn't quite pull the trigger on a side here. I'd probably lean BYU getting the points because I just think these teams are really sort of similar in their play style. So I think it'll be a really tight, close game. The only thing that would give me a little bit of concern is you did see the BYU defense give up rush yards to Boise State. Yep. So maybe that's Boise State, finding their offense a little bit, and you don't sort of hammer that. But maybe it's a trend also for BYU's defense to start to break down a little bit. So I lean BYU plus the 5, but I probably couldn't pull the trigger on either side of this really well, but really entertaining game that should be fun to watch. Next up, Big 12 matchup, TCU versus Oklahoma. TCU has owned Texas throughout the years, has not been able to own Oklahoma all that much throughout the years. Certainly since Lincoln Riley has taken over. They were a little bit better under the Bob Stoops institution. But anyway, this is 13.5. I'm assuming it's going to be mostly Caleb Williams here playing quarterback for Oklahoma. So what do you make of this game?
Now, so I didn't pick this one straight up. I do have it in a parlay that I've got Oklahoma. I think I got them at minus 12. But I like Oklahoma here. I think this might be the first one they're supposed to win big, and they come out and win big. I think they've made the change. Their offense started clicking, and I think we're going to see the Oklahoma of years past just come out and put 40 or 50 on a really actually bad TCU defense.
Yeah, that's sort of where I'm thinking here. It's going to go one way or the other. Either we're going to get the Oklahoma rolling to, about 60 points, old school style. They probably give up 30 or 40, but, they put it on TCU pretty good offensively, or we get the opposite. Caleb is a true freshman quarterback here. So, as good as he was in that Texas game, maybe he comes a little bit back down to earth. And TCU, well, their defense has not been that good. They do run some, tricky formation and blitz packages that a freshman quarterback like that probably has not seen in his lifetime. So I'm thinking either this is going to be a runaway blowout game, or Caleb will probably be really bad and TCU can take that. So that's why I was a little bit reticent. I want to see the quarterback play another game or two before I go full bore into Oklahoma is going to light the Big 12 on fire here. Just yet, especially since they were down 28-7 in that Texas game. And then you go back before that, and they've been really, really poor. Now, since Caleb came in there, they have only rolled on offense. So, you judge that what you will, but I just wanted one more look at this Oklahoma team before, I totally flipped the page over and was like, okay, Oklahoma's offense is really back to rhythm here. TCU's been hot and cold. You mentioned their defense has been really, really poor. They did get that nice win last week versus Texas Tech, putting 52 on them. So it'll be interesting if that offense sort of can carry TCU in this game a little bit, even though we've seen the Oklahoma defense play better of late, discounting that Texas game last week. All right, let's move on to the Pac-12, and we'll go up UCLA, riding up to Washington here. UCLA coming off win versus Arizona, coming off that loss to Arizona State. Washington had a bye week, so they had an open week after coming off that loss to Oregon State here. What do you make of this game? I'm just curious if you think UCLA can continue to roll here, or are they going to struggle here going on the road up north?
I looked at this, wanted to take UCLA, and then realized that there's just a big red, stay away sign on this game, because that going up to Washington is just always a trap game for Pac-12 leaders. That's just somewhere that they go to lose. So I'm not making a play on this one for sure. But Washington's playing a little better than they did earlier in the year. Still not great. Like you said, they dropped that one to Oregon State, but they've had a bye to recover, and just getting them at home is tough.
Yeah. I think if they hadn't had the bye, I'd be a little bit more pushing towards that UCLA with this low number at 1.5 here. It's just like I want to do it so bad, but it's essentially breaking every rule that I think I've told you the last 2 years about. Don't mess with Southern teams going up into that northern region. It always ends badly. You'll turn on
especially
the game
later in the year.
Yeah, you'll turn on the game. It'll be rainy. It will be windy. And these Southern teams will just want to catch a flight back home and not really care about this game. So I'm really curious to see how this UCLA game plays out. I'm like you. I banned myself from taking this game. Now I'm going to have to continue to tell myself that because I will say this probably is going to end up working its way into a parlay into my head here, especially if that number goes up any. There hasn't been a lot of action on this game on the Washington side, but I was sort of hoping it could creep up into a 3-like number, and then I might be all over it. But I don't think anybody trusts Washington enough to put enough money on them. But you mentioned it. Probably just stay away from this game. Don't mess with Southern teams going up north in here. But I will say the 1.5 plus is staring a big hole in my brain.
Well, I tell you what, if Washington was getting a little bit more, I'd probably lean to taking them. If they were getting 3.5, I would probably lean Washington here.
All right. So those are our games that aren't in our picks slate.
Yep.
We're going to go into our picks this week, and we'll preview some of the games off our picks this week. So why don't you start us out with your first pick of the week?
This one, I really like this one. I've got Army plus 14 at Wisconsin. They lost a game a few weeks ago to Ball State, pretty ugly. But other than that, this Army team's played really well this year, and Wisconsin can't do much of anything offensively. So I like the 14 points here for sure. Army may not win this game, but I definitely don't think Wisconsin's going to beat them by more than 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I'm on this one as well. I have Army plus the 14 here. I mean, you talked about it. Wisconsin has been absolutely atrocious on offense pretty much all season long. Last week at Illinois was probably their best offensive output, and they won 24-0. And a lot of that was due to their defense shutting Illinois down. It wasn't once again a real offensive game for Wisconsin. You mentioned the tough loss to Ball State, but Army has had a bye week. They're coming off a bye going into Wisconsin. I think that Ball State game was a result a little bit of them looking ahead and wanting that Wisconsin game, thinking they could probably at that point think they could run the table if they could beat that Wisconsin team. And they just sort of lost control of that Ball State team, who's starting to play some good football too. I don't totally downgrade it. You mentioned it the week before that. They played Miami of Ohio, beat them pretty easy. So, definitely will be interesting to see how this game plays out. But like you, I think that 14-point spread way too big for this game, because I'm not sure this game might not even get to 14 points. Really, they might be trading punts in the middle of the field the whole time.
Well, I was going to say, what's the over/under on run plays in this game? 80.
I don't know if 80 plays will happen. It will probably be 25 run plays and 30 overall plays in this game, because my guess is Wisconsin does not want that offense out there exposed too much. So, I'm with you. 14 points just seemed like a whole lot, a little bit of an overreaction to that Ball State loss for Army. Before that, I think this line would have been hovering in 7-8 point territory there if that Ball State loss doesn't happen.
Yeah, definitely. I probably even less than a touchdown, because Army would, still be rolling into this week 7 undefeated at this point if they didn't have that Ball State loss, and Wisconsin's got the 2 ugly ones. So But yeah, 14, I like it. Taking it all day.
Me too. So we're both on that one. Mutual Army plus the 14. My first pick, we don't have to talk about this game too much, though it's a pretty big game in the MAC. Though after last week, I'm borderline in ban of betting on MAC games because just when you think you know the MAC, you don't know the MAC.
Yeah, I came into this season, I made a lot of money on the MAC last year. I was like, yeah, I'm going to make a lot of plays in the MAC. Well, it has been more unpredictable than any other conference in the country right now. So, yeah, it might be a good stay away conference.
All right, so I'm going to go with Kent State plus a 7 over Western Michigan here.
Good.
This is probably dangerous territory because Kent State has played 2 good games in a row, and Western Michigan has played a poor game in a row, which probably means MAC style. Western Michigan is going to roll by 35 points in this game. But anyway, I think Kent State getting 7 in this one. I think from what we've seen, to start the MAC season, Kent State's probably played the best of anyone we've seen. Now, take of that what you will, because 1 week Western Michigan looks like they are world beaters coming off. They have a win versus Pittsburgh. They had a good win the week before going into Miami of Ohio and then get rolled by, I think it was Ball State last week. So it's just hard to predict, but Kent State has seemed to be the most consistent coming off a really good win versus Buffalo. So I like that plus 7 there.
All right. Well, my next pick, I'm going to go against my team here. It hurts me, but the way I look at it, I'll be happy with, or somewhat happy with either outcome. I'm going to take Ole Miss minus 3.5 at Tennessee. Tennessee fans are getting really fired up. Sellout crowd, Checker Neyland. I think injuries and depth are going to be a big factor in what is probably going to be a shootout. So you're going to need those bodies to throw out there, and I think that's where Ole Miss is going to have the edge, especially at running back. Tennessee's got, their top 2 starters are playing with some injuries. They may not play, and I think it could be close for the first half, but I think this is one that Ole Miss pulls away by a few touchdowns in the end.
Yeah, I'm really, really close to grabbing Ole Miss here, especially if this thing stays under 3.
I got it at 3.5 early, but it's dropped since then. I think it's 2.5.
I know. The money is flying in on Tennessee right now, and they've played well. The offense has looked great, but
against Missouri and South Carolina.
Against Missouri and South Carolina. What are, we gauging that with, 2 weeks ago when they were getting rolled by Florida, nobody was, really hyped. And now, we win 2 games, we score 50 points and everybody's, thinking we're ready to win the SEC East here. And I think if this was in and around your territory, in the 4s, I'd be a little bit less likely to take it just because this very much has the possibility of being very similar to that Arkansas game where basically everybody's just trading scores. No one's stopping anyone. And whoever has the ball last is going to win. And there's no telling if it's going to be 7, it's going to be 1, it's going to be 3. It's just who has the ball last. But with this going under 3, it's starting to pull my eye towards Ole Miss here. Now, I wanted to get a little bit to the total here. I think we both passed on it because we are a little bit scared this does end up in the 40s. But 82.5, that's ludicrous for an over-under.
Yeah.
You should basically take the under just on principle in this one.
Yeah, I'm very mad at myself that I haven't taken that yet. I can't do it. I everything that I know from my few years of picking games against the spread is you always take this under. Odds are you're going to hit, but I've seen both of these teams play defense. I've seen the way their offensive runs. They'll run 10 plays in 45 seconds. This has all the showings of being another 100-point plus game like Arkansas Ole Miss last week.
Yeah, definitely so. Principle wise, you should probably take the under. But if you've watched these 2 teams play, and I think Ole Miss has decided to go back to last year's form where we're just going to score points. And if we give up a big play every third play on defense, it's okay. And
I think their
Tennessee's
main goal is
secondary
to
is they can try, but they do give up that big play every third play.
Yeah, I think their main goal is just to get the Heisman for their quarterback this year. Now that they've lost
I know.
Bama, so
yeah, I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but if it stays under 3, I'm probably going to lean Ole Miss here. Just crazy that this has gotten that low. So that's going to be a fun game, I think, but don't expect defense in that one. All right, next up for me, Virginia Tech, +5 versus Pittsburgh here. I mentioned it when we opened the show. A lot of people really are big on this Pittsburgh team. I saw a couple people's power rankings where they have Pittsburgh in the top 15 of their power rankings. And, I'm just not totally sold on this. I think still, if you put a little pressure on them, they will fold and crumble. Now, that being said, after watching Virginia Tech fold and crumble last week to Notre Dame, I'm not quite sure this is the team to do it. But I'm just riding Virginia Tech here. They're both 1-0 still in the ACC. I know Virginia Tech has had, I think, 2 losses in a row, but granted, those are non-conference losses and they don't factor all that much. So I think this is a big game here. I think it'll be a close game because I just don't see Pittsburgh being able to beat Virginia Tech +5 from what I've seen from the Virginia Tech defense, despite a fourth quarter meltdown last week.
Yeah. Definitely.
All right. So what do you got next?
Let's see. We'll go to this one next. I like Kansas State +7 at home versus Iowa State. I've been off Kansas State for a few weeks now. I was a big fan of this team. They let me down a couple times, but I like them getting a touchdown at home against Iowa State team. Is definitely not what they had hoped they could be at the beginning of the year. So yeah, they've only got that one loss early on, but they haven't really played a whole lot else. And Kansas State's been tested quite a bit, so I like Kansas State getting the points here.
Yeah, this was an interesting game. I really want to take Kansas State here, but this is where preseason hype gets in your head, and you got to filter out from what everything has been said in the preseason about Iowa State to legit what you've seen so far in the regular season. I've watched Iowa State play. They lost to Baylor outright. They got mauled by Iowa. They struggle with UNI. Their big wins are they went to UNLV and annihilated them. And then they had a big win last week versus Kansas. That tells me nothing. It tells me K-State, who was, a score away from Oklahoma, beat Nevada, who has looked better and better each week, has that win over Stanford. They are the better football team so far this year playing out. So why would they be getting plus at home other than what you believed in the preseason that this Iowa State team is a challenger for the Big 12? And I don't know. I haven't quite pulled the trigger on Kansas State. You are probably going with the smart decision here. Grab those points and watch K-State probably beat up on this Iowa State team, who has basically been poor all year long, except for UNLV and versus Kansas last week. So, I really like this pick, and this one probably definitely will be in a parlay tomorrow as well as I unfold those. But if you can sort of block out what you thought about Iowa State in the preseason, I think this is a no-brainer bet right here.
Yep.
All right. Next up for me, speaking of the aforementioned UNLV, I'm going to ride UNLV +7 versus Utah State. Utah State got off to a pretty hot start on the season, but has sort of fallen back to earth a little bit now that they've gotten into Mountain West play. Now they'd have to fall back a lot to earth to lose to UNLV. But I think this UNLV team can be spunky at times.
Yeah.
I think if you jump on them early, they sort of fold over and quit. But if you let them in the game, they get more and more confidence and can sort of play their way into it. So I like this UNLV +7 at home versus Utah State here.
Yeah, this is a UNLV team that can actually put up some points. So,
yeah. All right. What do you got next?
My next pick, I'm going to take big favorites, Western Kentucky -12.5 versus Old Dominion. I think Western Kentucky's offense is going to dominate Old Dominion here. Although Old Dominion's looked pretty scrappy in a few games this year.
Yeah,
so.
They were pumped up last week. Feisty Old Dominion team last week. I do think Western Kentucky probably gets on track here. They probably had one of the hardest schedules in football to start the season. So now that they probably have these lower tier teams, I think they find their rhythm, put together a win streak here. So I think the only thing is I'd be a little nervous of a backdoor from that Old Dominion. You mentioned it. They were spunky last week. They've sort of been getting incrementally better each week. I think they've covered in back-to-back weeks as well. So the only thing I'd be a little nervous here is a backdoor if Western Kentucky gets up on them pretty quickly. Next up for me, I'm going with Boston College plus the 3 here versus NC State. This is one of the ones, that conference schedule that probably a pretty good game. I just don't understand why NC State's favored on the road in BC. Now, granted, BC doesn't have the huge home field advantage here, but that's a tough road trip to go up to BC for NC State. And I don't think these teams are all that very differently. BC, NC State, probably very, very similar. So I think there's a lot of value here with this +3 versus BC.
Yeah, definitely. I like this Boston College team. They're having one of their best seasons that they've had in a long time, and this ACC is up for grabs.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, they lost that tough game to Clemson in a tight one, but that's only one loss. And I'm assuming pretty much everybody will end up with a couple losses here in the ACC, except for maybe Wake Forest, the trendsetters of the ACC here. But really interested in this game. But I think there's really good value in that +3 for Boston College. That might be my favorite pick so far this week. What do you got up next?
Let's see. Up next, I like we're going back to the MAC. I'm going to take a team that I haven't rode yet this year. I've actually was down on them in preseason, but I'm going to take them. Northern Illinois -9 versus Bowling Green. Bowling Green had that one random makes no sense game against Minnesota, and then they went right back to being the Bowling Green we all know and love. And Northern Illinois has played really solid the last few weeks, so I'm going to take them to win big over Bowling Green here. I'm surprised this is less than double digits.
Yeah. I don't think the odd makers have a clue what to do either. I think they see that weird, Bowling Green win versus Minnesota and are like, what is this? But then you got Northern Illinois, who played bad for like 2 games and then has played good 3 games in a row after playing good to start the season. It's just hot and cold. And then what do you do with Bowling Green, who gives up 40 points to Akron last week? So no telling what you're getting out of that. But definitely Northern Illinois. I guess we sort of have to speak of them as maybe a contender in this MAC. When I had them
dead last in my preseason rankings of the MAC.
Yeah, I know. I think everybody did. I think we thought Northern Illinois, Bowling Green, Akron were going to be battling for worst team in basically college football with, UConn and them. And somehow Northern Illinois might be battling for best team in the conference. So that's what you get.
That tells the whole story right there.
Yeah. That's what you get for reading preseason stuff. Anyway, interesting pick there. We'll see if Northern Illinois can continue their good play. Next up for me, I'm going to the Pac-12. And I'm going with Utah, getting 1 point at home versus Arizona State. I'm just playing this that we've gotten 2 good Arizona State games in a row. That probably means number 3 is not coming. One. Yeah, that means number 3 is not coming. You saw them go on the road to BYU. They struggled on the road in BYU. Yep. So that tells me they're probably going to struggle going on the road to Utah. Utah coming off probably their best offensive game in, I don't know, 10 years since Alex Smith might have been there versus USC last week. They actually had some passing game, which I have not seen in quite a long time. And they ripped USC to shreds last week. So I like Utah getting one at home here versus Arizona State. What do you got next?
Next up for me, I'm going to take Fresno State -3.5 going into Wyoming. These are both teams that have had some uglier games as of late, some letdowns and some closer ones than they should have been. But I still like this Bulldogs team, and I think 3.5 is a little small. They're going to beat this Wyoming team.
Yeah, this was interesting because I marked this one stay away right off the bat. I don't know what's wrong with Fresno.
This is a gut pick for me.
Yeah, I know. I think it's because I don't know what's wrong with Fresno. They play so great, and then somehow play UNLV in Hawaii, and that turns into their downfall. They struggle mightily versus UNLV, needing 2 last-minute scores to win that game. Go down to Hawaii. I'm still confused how they lost that game because Hawaii has just been brutal so far this year. We'll get to that a little later, foreshadowing here. And where this, I just don't understand this letdown by Fresno State. And then you had a Wyoming who started the season somehow scoring 50 points a game. And we were all wondering what the hell was going on because they seem incapable of scoring that kind of number. And then they've sort of come back down to earth here. Yeah. Plus this thing being in Laramie, I was just like, I want no part of this. I will watch, see what these teams do, and then gauge from there to see if Fresno can sort of refine their mojo there. But really an interesting game. All right. Next for me, we talked about it. I'm going with Nevada, -14 here versus Hawaii. Hawaii coming onto the mainland in Nevada. I think Nevada's sort of found their form here. I think they're going to roll. I don't look for this Hawaii team whose quarterback is banged up here to be able to cover this. I looked at this to be a pretty easy Nevada blowout here. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go with Texas A&M -9 at Missouri. This Missouri defense is terrible. A&M's coming off a big win. I don't think they have too much of a letdown. I think they're going to get some momentum coming into this one, and they're going to win big. They're going to put a lot of points on Missouri.
Yeah, I was just I think I was a little scared of this A&M offense being capable of doing what we saw them do last week to Alabama again. I don't know where that came from, considering what we had seen basically all season long, an inability to score points. But and then all of a sudden they're hammering huge offensive plays. Magically, the quarterback can actually pass the ball down the field, which he was entirely incapable of the previous 3 weeks. So interesting there. I just didn't want to jump right out and grab on A&M there just because really, they played one awesome game and 5 totally poor ones. But, yeah, if anyone's offense is trying to get right, the Mizzou is the right way to go. So that'll be an interesting one. I'm curious to see what A&M we get. Maybe this rolls them into where we thought they would be, or maybe it was – let's just play one game hard all season long and roll around and have a 4-10 record and trump our Alabama win. So that should be interesting. All right. I got 2 over-unders left on my slate. The Western Michigan Kent State game. We talked about it. I'm going over on that on the 66.5. These are probably the 2 best offenses in the MAC. So I think that one will be a high scoring one. And then lastly, the aforementioned Alabama, Mississippi State at 58. I'm going under on that. Mississippi State is probably one of the best defenses in football right now. Their secondary is elite. You've seen the problems that Alabama has really sort of had passing the ball deep. It's a lot of short passing games. So I think Miss State's corner should be able to handle that. And I just think this will be a tight game played in the 20s. And that being said, I haven't quite pulled the trigger yet, but I'm really, really tempted to take Mississippi State plus, 17 and a half, 18 points.
You don't think Saban's going to take out some aggression on Mississippi State this week?
I don't know if they can. I think this Mississippi State game can play this game tight. So I was curious what you thought of this.
Yeah, my instinct was to go to Alabama coming out and taking some frustration and win. But like you said, ever since, I guess, the first half of the Florida game, well, Ole Miss.
Yeah,
but scored on Ole Miss.
But that's everyone can do that.
And even then, a lot of that was, defense making big plays.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I could see it happening. I'm just going to sit back and watch that game.
Yeah, I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet because I don't know the last time I took against Alabama. It was probably in Saban's first year because I haven't trusted to go against them, spread or not spread, in forever because it's way too dangerous a game to play. But, it just seems like this matchup is a little bit closer than people might think. I know they think Mississippi State and, Mike Leach is high-flying offense, but this team is defensive-based. They did shut down the aforementioned Texas A&M, and that secondary is really, really good on this team. Now, they don't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, which might hurt them a little bit in this game. But, I'm eyeing that spread, but I'm not quite there. All right, what do you got up next?
I got 4 picks left. For this next one, we're going to go who I think is the Mountain West favorites now. I'm going to take Boise State -4 at home versus Air Force. They've really figured things out. They've turned it around, and they've had a couple games early that were non-conference games they dropped, but I think they can still turn it around and get the conference win, and I think they're going to roll over Air Force at home.
Yeah, if this running attack continues like it did, Boise State will be the best team in that conference once again. And you mentioned that they had some non-conference losses, but every one of those was a last position game. They could just as easily be, have a perfect record or one-loss record here. So, like that. The only thing is Air Force is getting a little bit of trouble, but that's mostly on the road there. But, if Boise's run game is back, I look for them to dominate this one as well. What do you got next?
Next up, I'm going to take Ball State -3 at a really poor Eastern Michigan team. So I think Ball State's going to dominate this one as well.
Eastern Michigan, they're atop the MAC right now, and a solid 4-2 record. So make of that what you will. Northern Illinois and Eastern Michigan, the powers of the MAC right now. But yeah, you mentioned we talked about it. Ball State playing really good football right now.
Yeah. Next up, I like Nebraska. I got them early at 2.5. I think this line is moved a little bit, but I got them 2.5 at Minnesota. This Minnesota team lost at home to Bowling Green, so not much of a home field advantage there, in my opinion. And I think this Nebraska team has really played hard all year. They've grinded out some games. They've been right there. They were right there against Oklahoma. But
versus Michigan last week. Just don't give the ball to Adrian Martinez and expect them to go win a game.
Yeah, I think if this team had a quarterback, they get 2 more wins this year.
Yeah, I know.
But this Minnesota team is very hot and cold, and the consistency, I think, of Nebraska is what's going to rule the day here.
The defense has been good basically all season long.
And then for my final pick, that's it. I got doubled up here. So, yeah, that's all my picks there.
All right. So that's all the Dynamite's picks. Should be a good week of football. Be sure to look for us on Monday. We'll be back with our recap and review. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our football content. Me and Achilles Rain will be here for our NFL show. We also got our NBA show as the NBA season kicks off. The
football.
Yes, but the NBA is kicking off. You're going to be watching those Lakers. They're already getting hurt. The team of the Blue Plate Special already getting banged up.
The geriatric Lakers. They've tried this before.
They have 6 Hall of Famers. 4 of which can no longer play basketball very well. But
I'm having Gary Payton, Karl Malone flashbacks.
Yeah, you might so. I don't think they don't even make it. Dwight and DeAndre Jordan make it quite to that class. But should be an interesting season. Don't want to miss all that. So like and subscribe. Be sure to be ready for our recap and review show on Monday. That's our show, and we're out.
Greenlight Network presents Football Time.